What's up everyone and welcome to my first Probing Paul episode for 2024. This is my monthly Q&A. Occasionally I also do mail time and I am going to be doing that today. So if you guys sent me something, maybe I'll open it. And if you guys ask me a question in the comment section of the last Probing Paul, then I might answer that too. Let's get started. Excellent! Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise, tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. As usual, we begin Probing Paul with a look into the past. Look how far back it goes. This is the Probing Paul playlist. If you guys want to check it out, it's linked in the description. I have been probed many times before, although full admission, I did not do this with episode number 83, so I had to kind of skip that. Our first question, though, comes from Aaron21, who has a Ryzen 3600, which was prone to BSODs, which sucks. They actually discovered that Core 4 was bad. They turned off the core, and it's been working since then, but it's time for an upgrade. We have the just announced 5700X3D. What would be the best bang for my buck AM4 upgrade? And I'm going to translate this question into what is the best bang for the buck gaming CPU right now, because in my opinion, it's the 5700X3D, which Aaron21 is already considering. There is also the 5600X3D, which is only available through Micro Center, or the 5800X3D, which is going to be a higher clock speed variant of the 5700X3D. For memory, they already have a 64 gig kit, and the video card is an EVGA RTX 3070 for the win. So the reason I think the 5700X3D is the best bang for the buck gaming CPU right now is because it has excellent gaming performance, and yes, you can get a little bit more performance out of the high-end CPUs on the Intel side if you're going for like a 13th or 14th gen part. Likewise, you can also get more performance going with AMD's AM5 platform, where Ryzen 7000 series CPUs are currently available. But as I discussed last week when I was talking about the sort of mid-range PC that I consider to be the PC to go for right now in 2024, if you're trying to save as much money as possible, then you want to consider parts that you already have, and that might be an existing AM4 system, even if it's an older series motherboard like a 300 or 400 series option. And you'll also want to consider the used market, because that is often where you can scoop up parts for very little money, especially if you find someone who's just trying to get rid of an old PC, for example. There are some caveats to this recommendation, which is that if you're building a completely new system right now, and especially if you're considering yourself to be a PC builder who might upgrade or expand their system in the future, then I would lean more towards the AM5 platform, because you're going to have a much better upgrade path there. But if you can carry over some parts from an existing system, like a 64 gig DDR4 RAM kit, for example, that wouldn't do you any good on AM5, you'd have to sell it and recoup the money. And especially if you can get yourself some good deals by shopping on the secondary market, then the 5700X3D is probably going to be the best bang for the buck right now at about $250. It's even a few bucks cheaper than that on Amazon right now. Newegg also has it for the MSRP of $250. The biggest competitor for the 5700X3D, I think, is actually a discounted 5800X3D. These are typically around $330 on average, but they do dip and have sales that go down below 300 bucks. Right now it's $290 on Amazon. Or on Newegg, you have an alternative proposition. It's 320 bucks here still, but free B450 motherboard with purchase. And combos like this are another thing to take into consideration when you're trying to spec out a build and figure out what the overall cost is going to be. Now, the 5600X3D that's only available at Micro Center is also a viable option, and that one is less expensive than the 5700X3D. But if you have access to a Micro Center, I would say look at their combo deals for the 5700X3D and 5800X3D, because I would generally veer towards an 8-core CPU option at this point if you're not trying to stick to a very strict budget. But ultimately, the good news is that there are quite a few really good options for CPUs right now that helps you save some money to contribute towards your graphics card, because that is probably where you're going to be spending the bulk of your money. But thank you for that question, Aaron21. Our next question is from Richard Brennan 7666. Hello, Paul. I've been watching and enjoying the channel for years. Thank you very much. My question involves XMP profiles. They're running an MSI X570 motherboard, Corsair Vengeance RAM at 3600 speed. As with many memory kits, this kit actually has two XM profiles, but whether they're setting profile 1 or profile 2 in the BIOS, occasionally the RAM speed resets back to its original stock speed, which is frustrating. You go to check your speed in the task manager, suddenly you're like, wait, this isn't running at 3600 speed, it's running on like the default, which is like 2400 or 2600, whatever that is. So I have 3 responses to this. First is good on you, Richard Brennan 766, for actually reality checking your computer and reality checking what it's doing, because some people get everything set up and then they just go about their business playing games or doing work or browsing the internet, and they never actually look to see what speed their system is running at. Whether you're using Task Manager or a utility like Hardware Info, it's a really good idea to periodically check what speeds your system is running at, CPU frequency, your memory, make sure your temperatures aren't getting out of control, because that can often help you spot something that might be going wrong with your system and nip it in the bud early. The other 2 points are hopefully solutions for you as to why this might be happening. There are 2 main reasons I think either one of them might be likely. The first is that you're running a memory overclock that might be unstable. Remember, when it comes to memory speeds, the default speed that's listed is the only thing that they're promising will work. XMP profiles are just manual memory overclocking that runs the memory at 3000, 3200, 3600 or higher for DDR4 memory is technically an overclock and it is not guaranteed to work. So the first thing that might be happening is your system is encountering instability, possibly resetting itself. After multiple resets, your BIOS might just reset itself in order to make sure your system can boot up in a safe state. And if you happen to leave your system on all the time and it's just doing this while you're not even looking at it, you might not even notice that it's happening. If you're able to determine that that is what is causing this and you're not that comfortable with the tweaking and fine tuning that can be involved with memory overclocking, I'd recommend going into your UEFI, setting your 3600 speed XMP profile, and then just manually changing that speed down from 3600 to maybe 3400 or even 3200. You could also go in and loosen the timings up by just a point or two, and that might get you the stability that you need to not have these random resets. The other possibility is something that's a little bit more simple, but you might not have considered, especially if your motherboard is 2, 3, 4 years old or older. Your motherboard's battery might have gone dead. If the battery goes dead and there's no power to the system, then the CMOS will reset back to default when you power the system on again. So if your system's attached to a power strip that you're actually turning off and you have no power to the system, that might be causing that. If you have a power supply plugged in and you're not switching the switch off, your motherboard should still retain the CMOS info, but a dead motherboard battery is another possible thing that might be causing your BIOS to reset to defaults and having you lose your XMP settings. Hopefully that helps you out, Richard, as well as anyone else who might have had XMP or Expo settings failures in the past. Let's move on to some less technical questions. What kind of a house should I build, Paul? Asks Mr. Rainbow Loves Coffee. A yurt? Sure, go for a yurt. They're portable, they're circular, they have a lattice of flexible poles and fabric, and I just like saying yurt. Yurt, yurt, yurt. Fun word to say. And apparently they only take between 30 minutes and 3 hours to set up or take down, according to Wikipedia. It's probably way more helpful than my answer to the memory question. Next up we have eHybert1297. Thanks for the video. Paul, when will we get Commando news? The best news free of all constraints. It seems like you want Commando news for me to go a little bit rogue and like just say everything that's exactly on my mind, but I have some news for you about this, which is that I actually do Commando news quite often, almost every time. It's just a different kind of Commando, you know? GameFace6091 says, I have 4 of the Paul's Hardware pint glasses. I guess this is less of a question and more of a comment, but I included it anyway. This is like a positive review for my merch from someone that's had them for years. And also, nicely pointing out that we have no nick. I should have one of these. GameFace6091 is totally correct here. These are no nick glasses, which is why there's just a little bit of a protrusion along the edge, and that is basically to reinforce it and make sure that over a lifetime of use, especially if it's in a place like a pub or a bar, the glass is going to hold up and they're not going to break. Funny story, for a while I thought they were pronounced non-ick, which I mean I feel like also applies hopefully to my glasses. And I didn't know what that meant. At some point later I found out it was literally no nick, as the bulge prevents the lip from being nicked, and if you have a bulge you definitely want to something about lips. And I was hoping I'd be able to say bulge and lip in the same sentence sometime in this video. They are traditional English pub glasses, and oh my goodness, what a surprise. They're on sale right now. Everyone go scoop up some pint glasses. Last question from Death via Avatar. On a side note, I'd love to see a full desk mat that has the all-over print seen in the background of the questions and comments. It's almost 90s arcade carpet, but for PC nerds desks. Make it so, please. I really appreciate this comment because kind of like the last one reminding me about things. I have so many things that I think about and that I forget all the time. such as drinking water. And this is totally one of the ideas that I had. This is a sort of a step and repeat that Joe put together using the 8-bit icons that were designed, added a little bit of like RGB glow behind them and everything. It looks really nice, and we've been using it as a backdrop for a lot of different things in videos, if we're showing questions that pop up or quotes or other videos that we want to embed. But Death via Avatar, as soon as I saw your comments, I wrote up an email to my merch guy, John, and I also sent a note over to Joe, and this is in the works now. I can't promise it's gonna be like soon, because I've just said, hey, let's do this, and we need to figure out the art and see if we need to vectorize it and all that kind of stuff. But that desk mat is now in the works, and it's all thanks to you. So I hope you did not actually die after you saw the movie Avatar. It is pouring rain today, but I'm getting distracted. It's time for mail time, which is where I open stuff that gets sent to me. I do it every couple months or so as warranted, and if you would like to send me something to open on the show, you can send it to P.O. Box 4325, Diamond Bar, California, Paul's Hardware. Full disclosure for today, most of this stuff is stuff that I ordered or stuff that was sent for builds that are coming up. So this is gonna be a little bit of a teaser for a couple projects I have coming out in the next couple weeks. And we shall begin with this guy right here. What is in this box, or what I believe is in this box, is both the CPU and the GPU for the build that I am building very soon, which is actually going to be for my sister. How is it both a CPU and a GPU in a box this small? Well, it's an APU. This is the Ryzen 7 8700G, which is an 8-core processor with the integrated Navi graphics. And it currently bears the distinction of having the best integrated graphics possible. Now that isn't a huge high watermark to pass or anything. There are actually multiple options for CPU and a discrete graphics card that cost roughly the same amount as this CPU that would be maybe preferable for some builders. As I discussed a little bit in tech news when the CPU first came out, it is a little bit more niche in terms of application, but I found a niche application very close to home that it's going to be a great fit for, and that is my sister, who doesn't really play video games, but she does do a fair amount of tasks with her PC that involves some heavy lifting. So the 8-core processor is definitely going to be a big help here. And one of the really nice things about this is not only does it have decent graphics chops, but it's also a 65-watt TDP processor, which makes it a 65-watt TDP processor and graphics card. I guess I should say graphics solution, since it's not actually an add-in card. This does ship with a stock cooler, which is the Wraith Stealth, but I decided to upgrade that. ID Cooling actually has a lot of low-profile CPU coolers that do a really good job. This is the IS47XT. The step up from this is, I believe, the IS55 or 57, which is a decent step up in cooling. However, the case that I chose has fairly minimal clearance for the CPU cooler because I'm trying to make it a really tiny and compact build. So this little guy here should be a nice improvement over the stock cooler. It should also run quieter, and it should also be trim enough or low profile enough to actually fit in the case. I also grabbed a $5 add-on for this cooler, which is an AMD kit, which allows you to rotate it 90 degrees if necessary. I'm not sure if I'm gonna need this or not, but it's good to have for the build. I'll show you the case in just a moment. I'm actually pretty kind of excited about it because it's so tiny and also reasonably priced. But speaking of reasonably priced, gosh, look at all these extra add-in stuff that Newegg throws in their boxes now. I wanted an AM5 motherboard that was cost-effective. And for that, you need to actually step down from a B650 class board to the A series, and that series is A620. The chipset is cut down in various ways, but for our purposes, this should work just fine. This is ASRock's Phantom Gaming A620i Lightning Wi-Fi motherboard. And if you're looking for an A620 chipset motherboard that's Mini-ITX, that's not completely cut down, you basically have this option from ASRock in the low $100 range. This is about $120 to $130. Or there's a Gigabyte board as well, but the Gigabyte board actually only has one M.2 slot, and that's why I chose this one. There's two M.2 slots, one here with a little bit of a heatsink on it, and then they've got a second one here on the back of the board. So that is going to provide my sister's PC with a bit more storage capacity and storage expandability, since we are working with a pretty small case. And speaking of which, that case is right here. It's an in-win case that comes with a power supply and also selling for about $130, roughly the same cost as the motherboard. So case plus power supply, it's only 200 watts, but it's 80 plus gold rated. And at stock speeds with this CPU, you're probably never gonna pull more than about 100 watts for the entire system. I was looking at lots of Mini-ITX options like the Fractal Terra or the North. Several other like vertically oriented thin chassis, but those are all designed to fit a graphics card. And since I know this system is never going to need one, I thought, why don't we go super small, ditch the GPU expandability option, and that's what led me to discovering this case from Inwin, which I was previously unaware of. So there it is. You got plenty of ventilation on the side, and that's going to be great for the intake for our cooling fan. That's also, of course, why there's not a lot of vertical space for a cooler in this case. You can stand it up vertically like so, or you can also run it on its side like this. Probably vertically is going to be the best for airflow. It even has your modern connectivity up front with a couple USB 3.0s and a Type-C port that I believe can do 20 gigabits per second. I have a couple more packages back here, but I had to get permission to share them with you because I wasn't 100% sure if I was able to do that yet. The answer for this package was no. There's a graphics card in here, and I can't tell you what graphics card it is, but I will promise you that I will be doing a video with a build with this graphics card, some testing too, and I anticipate that being ready to go before the end of the month. So this one will stay a mystery for now. But I can reveal at least the box for this one. And I don't know if you can see, 2500 series right there. Corsair initially wasn't going to be at CES, but then they actually were at CES and they revealed a couple new case lines. They have a 2500 series of cases and a 6500 series of cases. These are unique because they're compatible with the rear-mounted motherboard connectors, which is a development with PC building that I've been somewhat critical of myself. But I'm trying to recognize where there are some benefits versus what I think are some trade-offs. So I'm going to be doing a build in the 2500D, and there are actually some surprises coming along with that build as well, but I'm gonna leave it a mystery for now. But I did want to close out by saying thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there are parts that I have links to, I will post those links down in the video's description. If you want to help me out by hitting the thumbs up button on this video if you enjoyed it. And you can also check out my store at paulshardware.net where you can buy shirts, mugs, and of course, these lovely English Imperial pint glasses with the no-nick rim. If you'd like to be notified of my new videos when they go live, consider subscribing as well. Thank you once again for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.